Good morning, dear students of Noble Heights Academy. My name is Anselm Efe, and I'm delighted to be with you this morning. I hope you all having a lovely day. You've woken up today and you are going to have a good time. I'm here to tell you about books, and to tell you how wonderful books are. I have a book in my hand. It's called Peter Johnston and His Guitar. It's an old book. But why I love this book is the book which I learned how to read with. I was very young and I was about 3 years old going to kindergarten in a nursery school called St. Mary's Nursery School in Lagos, Nigeria. And I remember that my father introduced me to books and taught me to love books. The reason why I love books is because as a little child, it helped me to get out of my environment. Anytime I opened the book, I was alone with the book, and then I could read about the book and I could read stories in the book, and I could go wherever I pleased with the book. This book is so old because when I first got this book, it was published in 1965. So when I first got this book, I was reading this book. It's an interesting book. It's a story about Johnson and his guitar. And Johnson and his guitar, he had his guitar on his back and he thought he lost it. So he went about and took all the animals, eventually found his guitar behind his back. Now, this book is so memorable to me that years later, I didn't know where the copy was. And I eventually found a copy on the internet, on eBay, and I bought a hard copy from a library in Wisconsin. And it was, and the last person that borrowed this book is somebody called Emily Handeman. So it was a used book. I bought it and I've kept that book because it used to belong to a school called Holy Ghost School, Dickerville, Wisconsin. They probably got rid of it. So although this book was a book that is an old book, but I've kept that book because it's a blessing to me. I remember the first time I found the copy of the book again and I opened it and I read it. It did a lot of things to me. It reminded me of my father's living room in Lagos. It reminded me of my mother and my little sisters. And it was fun because that's what it did for me. Today, we have the internet. You can read books digitally, but there's a lot of reasons for reading a book, a physical book. Because one thing you find out about a physical book is that it helps you to understand better. So it improves how you understand things. Because when you take a book like this, you read a page, and then because it was a book for kids, it was quite illustrated, meaning there were pictures, very colorful pictures with it. So when you read a book like this, you can go back and you can go forth. And when you're reading the book, it's really interactive with your mind, meaning that your mind is also thinking. So you read a little bit and you stop. And that time that you stop, it helps to remember the things that you read. The other thing about physical books is that it reduces distractions. So, for example, if I was reading from my phone or reading from the computer, I could see a hyperlink. There, then I click on the hyperlink and I'll go somewhere else. And then because I go somewhere else, it's like walking around somewhere and suddenly turning around because you see a crowd. So you go over there and then you're distracted and you spend more time there. You don't come back to what you're doing. That hyperlink may take it on that hyperlink and take it on that hyperlink because the internet is endless. So that way you've now distracted yourself from the purpose of reading your book. So that's one thing about reading hardcover books. It reduces distraction. The other thing that we've learned from hardcover books is that it's better for focus and it's less fatigue to your eyes. When you're reading a book from a computer or a phone, what happens to you is that your eyes begin to get tired because of the glare from the lights from the computer because you're reading against something that has a background to it. So there's some kind of fatigue and tiredness. And the other thing I found out too that's interesting about the book is if I'm reading the book, for example, and NEPA takes away electricity, I could read with a lamp. So I set the lamp on and I can continue reading non-stop. I can just go on and read. So you see, books are really great for you, physical books. The other thing about books that are physical is that it it helps you to share with your friends, to share with your parents, especially. They've had these studies that show, now studies because I read books about this, that show that when a parent and a child, when they read together, it helps them to understand things. So, for example, dad can say, a child can say, "Dad or Mom, I don't know what this means," and dad and mom can explain to the child what it means. So, for you children, it's very, very helpful for you to read a book. What else do I think I like about books? Books help you to get away wherever you want to go to. If you want to go anywhere, you read a book, that book will take you to the place where you are not in naturally. I remember when I was growing up in Nigeria and I was reading about this series of books called bedtime stories. And I'm very happy that my father and my mother introduced me to books. So I was reading a book called Bedtime Stories, and I'll read about faraway worlds like England and snow and Australia and the outback, and about these animals called kangaroos that will carry their little babies in their pouch and they will hop with it. And also, I read about the boomerang, where you take up the Australia or the Aborigines, the original people that lived in Australia, they will take this weapon they have and they will throw it at an animal. And if it hits the animal, it falls down. If it misses the animal, it will come right back to where they were. I just read all these amazing things. So, what the books did for me as a young person, especially as a shy young person, was to be able to escape and be happy and read about things that gave me joy. And so then what it did was it helped my life to be full. The great thing about books is that they help you concerning what interests that you have. So, as a young child, I understand that most of you are between the ages of 7 and 11. As a young child, what you can do with books is that as you begin to read a book, you can find a book that's of interest to you. For example, here are some of my books that I have on my shelf. Everything that I have here is something that is of interest to me. So when I take that book and I open that book, I begin to read about something. And what do? It helps me to learn new things. So it helps me to learn new things. And one of the things that my dad had in my house, two books, was a dictionary, and then there was also a word usage. So, for example, if I read a word, I didn't know what it meant, I would have to go out and figure out what that word meant. I remember when I was growing up, I have an older sister. She was much older than I was. And so she was ahead of me in school, and which I think she was 2, 3 classes above me. So I remember the word Island. I never heard anyone pronounce it before. So I said it was Iceland. So she said, "No, it's island." I said, "Why would it be island?" And she said, "Well, the S is silent." It took me a while to learn that. But you could see that because I read a book and because I engaged with my older sister, I was able to learn something new. You know, as young persons, my question to you is this: what do you want to be? Not when you grow up, what do you want to be? Just write it down somewhere for yourself. What would you like to be? The world is full of lots of things to do. The world is full of lots of interests. But one of the things about life is that sometimes life takes a long time to learn things. So you can't wait until you get to class. You just begin to read about the things you love. My books are they're a little bit because I'm older now. They're a little bit different than when I was younger. So what I have books about things that interest me, about famous people. Have a book here, what I did was I color coded them because it's just pleasant to my eyes. I love some of them. So I have some books here. One of my favorite books here is a book by somebody that you probably would have heard of. His name is Barack Obama, and this book is a book about the Promised Land, which is a very interesting book. As you all know, Obama's father is Kenyan, and he became a two-term United States president. So it's a book about the Promised Land. It's a book I've read. And the other thing about books, reading books, is that I take a book, I read a book, and then what do? I highlight the book because it's mine. It's mine. But when even if the book is not yours and you get to a library or you're able to get hold of a book, you can look at the book and you can read it. But my books, I highlight them. So, for example, I have a book here, and again, I color coded them so I can get to them as fast as possible Let me see, what book could I give an example? Let me take the latest book I bought. I'm trying to read. I want to figure out how to run companies and to understand how a company works. So I got this book called the 10-Day MBA, 10-Day MBA, which is supposed to teach me about how I should read things. So what I do is that I've got a bookmark. I've got a bookmark. And one of the interesting things about bookmarks is that they help you to put it where you stopped reading it so you don't forget. But I also get these highlighters and I highlight the book. So for example, I have highlighters here or something. Why is that? So when I come back to the book, I can just go straight to that page. Books are great things for us. They're things that help us to learn. There are things that help us to escape. And any interest that you have, you can begin to look for books in that area. You'll begin to ask about books in that area. And then you can begin to study them. Physical books are much, much more helpful to you than digital books. I personally don't like reading digital books. I like a hard copy. I like a copy of my own, something I can read, something I can understand. So, in all these, what am I trying to share with you? I'm trying to share with you how powerful it is to love books. And there's a form of books I also read when I was much younger. They're called comics because they were illustrated, they have a story, they have all those things. So I will read them, I will enjoy them, but it also helped me to escape. Not escape as in a bad way, but it helped me to travel. A book can take you to a place where you can't be physically. And now it begins to help you to imagine great things. Now that I know better, if I was younger, the one thing I would have been doing when I was reading was also to write as well. Because when you read and you write, whatever comes to your mind, you begin to do it. Let's say, for example, you love cars. As a kid, as a boy, I love cars. I still love cars till today. So what you'll be doing is you look at the book, you say, well, I want to design a car like that. You take a piece of paper, you start to design the car. And now you read more about cars, you begin to understand cars better. What does it do for you? I know sometimes they say we should not burden children with things, but what it does for you is that it allows you to spend time wisely. It allows you to spend time in a way that's good for you. It allows you to spend time in a way that is peculiar to you. This is one of the good things that book does for you. So now I'm going to close this and I'm going to say thank you very much for the opportunity of being with you. And your English teacher, Kiempia Aderomu, was the one that introduced me to your class. And I said, I would like to have a class with you. I'd like to share with you and to discuss certain things with you. But before I go, I want to ask you to write down a few questions. Now, yes, and I wrote them down so that I won't forget. I said, what would you like to be? Just what, it doesn't matter what it is. What would you like to be? It doesn't matter what it is. Just say, what would you like to be? What are you curious about? What would you like to know? Because one thing about books is that the people that write these books, they know things and they've spent their whole life studying these things. And because they've done that, we can open a book and learn from them. Okay? Now, whatever you want to be, whatever you want to do, it starts today, not tomorrow. Now, when you grow up, it starts today. It starts today. So, as you learn, there are three things that is important for you. When you learn, you read, and then you begin to imagine. You begin to let your mind imagine, think about things. Am I go- maybe I'm going to cure this disease. Maybe I'm going to build this highway. Maybe I'm going to paint this great picture. It doesn't matter what it is. I remember that I have two brothers who are artists, and they will draw on the sand when we lived in a place called Abeokuta. They will draw on the sand all day with their hands all day, and both of them became very, very renowned artists. Some of the works I have on my wall, they painted them. So you imagine, and then you begin to do something that we don't do often think. You think, why is that like that? Like that? Why is that that way? I wonder if it could be different. And then you begin to do that. So you may draw, you may write, you may do all those things. But what happens is that you too become an author. You too start talking about books. You too start writing books. And so when you do this, it's going to be very, very helpful for you. One of the things I've decided to do for Noble Heights Academy is to find books and to ship out these books to you. I'm going to have to coordinate with your principal and your administrator to figure out how to do this. Because now I've told you about books, you need a few books. So it may not be immediate, it may take a little while, but I'm going to do the best I can to gather some books together and send those books to you so you can read them, so you can study them, and so you can be happy. Thank you so much for your wonderful time this morning. I want you to have a lovely day. And don't forget my assignment for you. My assignment is, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? What are you curious about? What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? What are you curious about? Those are questions for you to answer. Have a great day. I'm so happy. I'm so delighted to have had this opportunity to be with you again. Thank you. My name is Anselm Efe.